Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. We're back working on some more of the reels that Scott found at a West Coast flea market. And this one is going to be the Zebco XRL 15. And if I remember a conversation with Scott that would go back some time, this may have been one of the fishing reels that he grew up fishing with. And if it was, well, this one doesn't appear to be serviced since then. It's very, very tight. You can see there I'm exerting quite a bit of pressure and hardly turning the rotor at all. But the good news is the rotor is turning. So if you're ever going to consider buying a reel in this condition, I always recommend that before you do much, see what's working, make sure it's complete, that there's no obvious missing parts. And then if you're having trouble turning the handle, turn the rotor. So just kind of rotate that and see if the handle is moving. In this case, that handle is moving. So that's a good indication that the pieces are just probably what I call grease choked. That is, that they're very, very embedded with old grease. Well, we're going to take this reel apart. I'm going to show you how it's made. I'm going to try and correct the issue, give it a second chance, and see where that takes us. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove that screw. That screw should be holding in the long shaft of the handle. Well, there you go. Well, I can already feel there's a lot of old grease because that shaft should have just slid out, and well, wasn't quite the case there. I'm going to take the screw from that side plate. I'm going to put it in the handle. That way I don't lose it. And then I'm going to put it into a parts tray. I always use a parts tray for the pieces and parts I take off of the reel so that I know where the pieces and parts are when I go to reinstall. Mine is just a simple two-component piece from a fast food place. You can use whatever you like to keep your parts organized, but I do suggest that you get them off your bench and that you put them in a place they're not going to be knocked around or easily lost, because there's nothing more frustrating than working on a vintage reel like this, finding out that somehow you've lost the part and then being kind of out of luck because the parts are no longer available. Well, we're going to remove the 3 side plate screws. I like these old reels. They actually have the fine threaded screws, which are machine screws, as opposed to these what I'll call sheet metal screws, the ones that anchor a lot of the plastic or graphite reels these days. Just a sign of manufacturing quality. And while I'm taking off the exterior pieces here, I would encourage you, if you like reel repair, if you like to see how reels are made, how they kind of come together, what the technologies are, those sorts of things, I would encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do, hit that notification button, because you'll see when I post, and you'll be able to make a decision as to whether you want to see the reel that I'm working on. All right, the side plate is off. Well, this is interesting. I was calling it grease choke, but it may actually be the opposite, no grease. We're going to see. Well, that rotor is still very, very tight. So my guess is perhaps it was stored this way, maybe on a rod, or maybe even somehow down where the grease just kind of jammed up the mechanism. Well, with this off then, we're going to remove the main gear. And you'll notice this one's got an interesting setup here for the oscillation. There was no axle shaft coming down. It's sort of a mini axle shaft. It's right here. This is going to slide up and down. Oh, there's your cause right there. That's very tight there. And it's going to run on that offset route around the main gear here. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to use a penetrating oil to dissolve the grease in the channel there. And more importantly, I'm going to use the penetrating oil to get into that piece that's controlling this, the up and down movement of the shaft, because that's pretty much the biggest issue here right now. So I'm going to push that pin up, and then I'm going to just use a little screwdriver or something to scrape that old grease off, because that's more than half of the issue as to why this one's running tight. Very simple design here. That seems to be a hallmark for the Zebco line. They tended to use very efficient designs, limited amount of parts, and the good thing about all of that, well, less to break. All right, well, I'm not sure if that pin is going to come out or not. We're going to try. It should come out. Yep, the pin comes out, which is going to enable us to clean it a little bit further. I put that pin into my parts tray so I don't lose it. Now I can pull up on the spool. You can see a very truncated spool shaft there. Very interesting. Because that was having some difficulty going up and down, we're going to use a steel wool to polish that shaft, get the old greases off of it. And while we're at it, we'll check to see what we have under here. I believe we're going to have a sealed system here. Yeah, we have a sealed system for a drag washer. So that's pretty much unrepairable. What you can do is, it's probably a plastic washer, and you just need to make sure that you keep everything else clean. But this is a reel not intended for fighting a lot of big fish, and our washer is kind of sealed there. All right, the next thing up then is to remove the rotor. There is a little U-shaped clip underneath here. It goes on both sides of the rotor. You can see it in the video here, right there. And you want to remove that. And this is a good place to tell you, take pictures along the way as you're working on your reel. If you take those pictures, they're going to help you if you get disoriented in the reinstallation of this. Well, we can see that another cause of the sluggishness is that you've got a whole bunch of sand and dirt and debris under here. And of course that's going to rub on the collar that this sits on, and that's going to stop the reel from operating smoothly. And again, I'm going to hit that with penetrating oil. I find that the penetrating oil is a good cleaning agent in addition to dissolving the greases in that. It just kind of gets everything loose. It's not going to injure a reel, so I'll use that. And I'm also going to put a spray of that onto your bail assembly. And even though there's nothing on the one side, we're going to just kind of work that. This is where your bail is going to trip, so let's see if we can't get the trip to work. There you go. So it's going to hit a ramp and it's actually going to pull in. It's going to fire the bail. That's in good condition. With that penetrating oil and the piece is clean, I'm just going to use a regular fishing reel oil now on both parts. We're going to set that aside for a moment. There is some dirt behind where that channel is going to ride, so I'm going to use a cotton swab to get the dirt out. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to encourage you to ask questions. If you're working on a reel, maybe you're stuck. Maybe you want to know a little bit more about the history of a reel or something along that lines. Well, if you ask the question in the comments section, it doesn't have to be on this reel. Just ask the question in the comments section. If I know the answer, I'll be happy to try and share that information with you. And if I don't know the answer, I'll try and tell you where to go find that. All right, that post is nice and clean. We've buffed that with the steel wool. We're going to go ahead and put a light coating of grease on there. Then we're going to look for that hole where the pin is going to go. Yep, got ahead of myself. On the rotor, we need to reinstall that. Check the teeth on the rotor. Make sure that there's no chips or cracks. I kind of did that subconsciously. But check, make sure that it's okay. And we'll put some nice grease on there. You're going to notice that there's a slot in that rotor. That's where this clip is going to ride. Kind of easy to show you how that clip works without the case. So when you go to put this in, make sure that that slot has become visible in order to put that clip back in. If it's not visible, well, then something's between the rotor and the slot that needs to be corrected. All right, we're just going to put that in now. Just like that. That's how it goes. And if you want to give it a spin to see how it's performing. It's doing nicely. All right, now we can take that shaft with the light grease on there, bring that in. And you want to make sure that when you do that, that you keep the hole for that pin kind of pointing upwards so that you can put that pin in. Just like that. And you can bring that up. And actually we brought it up a little bit too far. Brought it down a little bit too far. There we go. And that's the pin that's going to ride inside the main gear here. Well, we got just a little bit of cleanup left on this. That penetrating oil has been doing what it should be doing. Now we'll get that old grease out of there. There's grease on the shaft, there's no question that was clogging this up terribly. I'm just going to use the side of a screwdriver to kind of chunk that off there. You can see all that old grease is just kind of gathered there, and of course that causes lousy performance, as the reel is not only fighting the regular issues of the day, but it's also trying to overcome that grease that's in its way. Alright. Steel wool again. I use the 4.0. I don't use anything more aggressive. If you do, it's going to scratch it or cause issues with it. A little grease into the track where the pin is going to ride. Check the teeth on the main gear again. Make sure that all of that is in good condition. And we're going to just bring this around so that we can set the pin now. So the pin is at the bottom of the stroke. There we go. You just want to turn your main gear until you can get that pin in. And once you get the pin in, turn the handle. Make sure that the spool is going up and down. If it's not going up and down, you don't have the pin loaded properly in the main gear. You'll notice I didn't put grease onto these teeth here. That's not needed. That's the click ratchet's teeth. But you do need a little bit into the side plate. Well, this one's always a pleasure because it's your anti-reverse dog. Your anti-reverse dog is going to work like this. You have a spring. If you took your spring out, or if it's loose, you have a spring that comes wrapped around this screw and nests on the side plate here. The other side has got a shoulder that's on the back edge of this. Well, when you go to install, you want to set your override switch. I set it there. And then as I go to load, I want to make sure that the metal piece of that dog is inside that shoulder first. And then we can kind of load it up. Have a little washer there. Just like that. And then if you spin it, that'll pull the case in, and you should have the anti-reverse. If you don't have the anti-reverse, you're going to have to go back and check that. We have 3 side plate screws next. So let's go ahead and tighten those down. So Scott brought a whole interesting group of reels from a flea market. He goes to flea markets out in Southern California, and I would encourage you, if you're looking for reels to kind of get started in and learn the art of reel repair, try flea markets, try church sales, try garage sales, whatever they're called in your area, tag sales, whatever. And you can often find them rather inexpensive. And you can also find ones that are broken. Now the broken ones, people would say, why are you buying a broken one? I call them tuition reels. I like to tinker with things. I like to find out why fishing reels break. And a lot of times the $2 or $3 you might spend for that broken reel, the learning is 10 times more than that in value. so that it helps you diagnose one the next time it comes in, and you have one with an issue. All right, we have the handle left. We've cleaned off the shaft. Handle goes in. This is a handle that can be mounted from either side, but we're going to remember that Scott likes them on the left side, so we're going to put that in here. When this originally came in, it was on the other side. We'll give that a tighten up, and we'll give it a spin. Well, look at that. It went from one that didn't turn at all to one that's turning free and easy and rather uncomplicated. Let's make sure the bail works. Bail works easily. We have to tighten that top drag down, and that's it. This is your Zebco. It's your XR15 model. It's somewhere in the 60s or 70s. I believe it's made in Japan. I didn't see on there. Yes, made in Japan, so probably closer to the 70s. Very nice little reel. As I mentioned, sometimes uncomplicated is the best way to do a reel, and in this case, the design and manufacture of that reel has got this one going again, and it's going to go fishing for a long time to come. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, again, please subscribe and hit the notification button. If you liked the video, please indicate that by doing the like. Speaking of liking, I want to extend my sincere thanks to every first responder and essential personnel for keeping us safe. And to all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.